Hey everybody, my name is Evan, and I like to draw. And this week, I decided to draw an amphibious fellow falling out of a flying helicopter. Using a reference picture, I can trace the basic outline of a helicopter, break it in half on the canvas, and then get to adding the finer details. No, I'm not a helicopter expert. I've been in like two, probably my entire life, but I know they got windows, doors, other parts, so I'll just be sure to put them all there for good measure. And if you happen to know someone who is a helicopter savant and I mess up in some embarrassing way, don't show them this video. Just don't. Once the front of the helicopter is done, I can then add the broken bits on the back of the tail where the helicopter was split in half. And now it's just a step of repeating the same process on the tail, except adding a little wheel at the bottom. Or, do helicopters have wheels at the bottom? Is it like planes where they have to put up their landing gear? Whatever, it doesn't matter. And once the possibly correct wheel is in place, I bet you're wondering, why would Kermit be jumping out of a helicopter in the first place? Well, he's 68 years old, so he's been around a while, and I'm sure in at least a few of those years he was pretty tight on cash. So, between you and me, tax evasion. The IRS has finally caught up to Kermit, and this was the only liable option he had, to just go bounding out of a helicopter. And just like the first part, I can use another reference picture to trace the basic outline, move it over to the canvas, and start adding the finer details. I can start in the middle with Kermit's big round felt belly, and then I can add his mouth, which is pretty much just two triangles smushed together. And once his triangular jaws are finished, I can give Kermit his tongue, although it's kind of weird. Most amphibians have really long sticky tongues that they shoot out of their mouths, but for whatever reason, Kermit's looks like this. Like, ew. So I'll decide to work on the tongue later and move on to his eyes. I tried a few different ways with really big pupils or really small pupils, but then I thought, if Kermit's running away from the IRS, he's gonna need dilated pupils so he can take in all the light he can. And then I'll duplicate that and put it on the other side and then add his tongue. Although, I was playing around, and I realized his little felt tongue looks kinda stupid, and I can give him a really long wiggly tongue. So I'm gonna go with that instead. Now you can hagger me all you want for inaccuracy and whatnot, but his tongue looks silly and that's what we're going with. And to connect his head to his chest, I'll give him a triple chin for good measure, and then start on his arms. And once the arms are finished, I can then distort them to nightmare-inducing levels, and then do the same for the other side. Now, Kermit doesn't go to the gym whatsoever, so he's got really long and squiggly arms. And then, once they're in proper place, I can just erase them in front of his tongue, so it looks like his hand is behind it. Moving down to his legs, I can give him some beefy thighs and hamstrings, and then draw his little feet and webbed toes. Draw on his groin, and then do the last limb that he has available. Once that's finished, I can give him his necklace, and that's the outline done, and now we're on to the coloring. For both parts of the helicopter, I'll give them a nice gray cobalt as the base color. And then Kermit can get an appropriately Kermity green. And it wasn't until now that I realized on one of his feet I gave Kermit 5 toes, so I can just erase one of those and then connect it back. We'll act like it never happened. Then it's just a case of coloring in all the other parts green, giving his mouth some red, his tongue pink, and his weird little necklace thing a yellowish green. Going back to the helicopter, I can give it a second round of colors with dark gray and white highlights in the windows, and other dark cobalt on the shading and cracked pieces. I'll also add some lighter gray to parts that might be roughed up or just have a nice sheen to them on the helicopter. And once that's done, I can do the same for Kermit by giving him dark spots in the shading and light spots where I think there would be a few. To give Kermit his felty texture, I can use a brush ironically named Blade Rush and then smudge it up so it looks like very different pieces of fabric that I'll blend together and create a nice fuzzy look. And once that's all done, I can go back and do a third round of shading on both pieces of the picture. I'll be extra sure to rough up the helicopter a little bit more by giving it a darker coat very close to the original color, and then adding dark spots and light spots on the corners where it broke, so it looks like the paint and metal's kind of chipping away a little. And using a brush with similar style to camo, I can give the helicopter a nice coating in that to make it look more military, or at least give it some nice texture to break up the mundaneness of one color. And with the two pieces in the foreground finish, we're able to move on to the sky. I'll start with a purple and then make my way down to orange and pinks, giving it a nice golden sunset look. But now that I'm thinking about it, it would be a lot more dramatic to have this take place at night during a thunderstorm. Oh well, I guess the sunset's cool too. Next up, I can add a few clouds at the bottom just to show how high up they really are. And then I can start work on the fireballs. I'll use a brush named Color Chop, which will give me a bunch of broken up little pieces in slightly different hues and shades that make it look very fiery. I can draw about 4 or 6 of these, a few in the front and then a little bit in the back, and then I can go and add the other textures and colors to them later. Once that's done, I can blend all the colors together and then use a sponge eraser around the edges, which will give the fireballs this very nice and realistic flame look. And then I can move on to the lighting. I can first lay down a big coat of yellow, and then lower the opacity a little, but also find the perfect blend mode that'll make it look like light is coming off of the fire and onto the helicopter. I can then do the same around Kermit and then add shading on the opposite side. Then I can go back through the entire picture and change all the outlines from a solid black to a color that more closely resembles what it's outlining. For example, the tongue will get a darker magenta, while Kermit will get a darker green. Then I can add a black layer around the outside, and I think we're done here, and onto the gallery. Well, this certainly was a video. I have no idea how I chose to make this picture. I kinda just had a random idea. But hey, you know, it all turned out great in the end. Anyway, thanks for sticking it to the end, guys, and I'll see you later. Oh, you're still here. Well, guess what? I did it. I added a nighttime thunderstorm variant. Yeah! I should have done this in the first place, but oh well. Anyway, well, see ya!